live here, and you are live.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and call a public safety meeting to order today. All members are present. Can I get approval of the previous held meeting minutes, please?
So moved.
Motion for approval.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We have 3 new pieces in front of us. Our first piece is authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Pierce Manufacturing Incorporated for the purchase of 1 Pierce fire pumper truck and 1 Pierce fire pumper truck with foam capabilities and 1 Pierce 75 aerial ladder truck and declaring emergency. And today we have District Chief O'Neill with us. And I'll turn it over to you, Chief.
Hey,
Deputy
Chief,
Mayor Brown, did you?
Yeah, I'm going to
did you
jump
wanna
in
weigh
first. I'm sorry.
Oh, all right.
That's
Charlie
okay,
Brown.
sir. Mr. Cameron, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. Council members. This is a piece we're looking for 1.8, 1.852, $1.8 million. And it is for those 3 vehicles that you mentioned. They're desperately needed at this point. Be happy to tell you that we're going to save some money with these purchases because they're 3 purchases. About $57,000 we're going to save with this multi-unit purpose. And if you have any questions, we'll be certainly able to answer those questions for you. If your committee, Mr. Kramer, has a favorable report, we would respectfully request suspension of the rules because of the time sensitivity.
All right, thank you, Deputy Brown. I appreciate that. I'll go ahead. Chief, do you want to add anything to that before I take questions?
I'll just simply say that these vehicles are replacing some of our oldest trucks that we have in the fleet. They'll be heading to Station 2 on Exchange and Market, Station 4 on Thornton Street, and the ladder truck is going to Station 8 at Archwood and Kelly. All those trucks have exceeded their recommended service life as a frontline vehicle, and they're ready to move into spare status. So as Deputy Mayor Brown stated, very much needed.
All right, thank you. I appreciate you 2 presenting. Let me go to the hands raised function. We do have Councilman Malik, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Chief. The one question I had was looking at the UCR. What's the funding source?
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so the codes have just now been approved. So this is part of IT4 money. So it's part of our capital budget. Some of it, 2 of the trucks, Ladder 8 and Engine 4 are part of the 2021 IT4, and then Engine 2 is actually part of the 2020 IT4 money that was put on hold because of the pandemic. But there was some carryover funds that made it available for us to kind of get caught back up and get on track and purchase that vehicle as well.
Thank you very much, sir. It looks sunnier in Yosemite than it is here in Akron today.
It's nice here.
Thank you, Councilman. Anybody else have any questions on the committee? I don't see any on the hands raised function. We'll go to any other council members. All right, I don't see anybody that wants to make any comments or questions, so I'll go ahead and ask for if we have a report to report out. I'll make the motion for a favorable report if I can get a second.
Second.
All right, we have a second by Councilman McKittrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you, Deputy Mayor Charlie Brown and Chief O'Neill. We'll present that this evening and pass that. Thank you, you 2.
Thank
Thank
you.
All right, moving on to our next piece, 10A. It's an ordinance amending supplementing Title 7 Traffic Code, Chapter 70, General Provisions, Article 4, impounding, Section 70.52, motor vehicle pounds in order to add 2 towing companies to the city's towing districts and declare an emergency. And this was brought in by Councilwoman Samples. I'll go ahead and turn it over to her, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Chairman Kamer. Yes, as we all know, we have listened to the small business owner, Carol, come down for team toying for years now. This legislation is something that we had discussed probably a few years ago when it came in. And a lot of time has passed since then, so it's coming back in. I am not asking for passage today, as I stated in my email. I am asking for us to collectively come together and put something very impactful, whether it's this piece or a combined piece or something that will open this district for other small business owners here in the city who meet all the standards and the requirements by whether the towing district or the ORC. As we already know, both people mentioned in this legislation meet all the requirements, and it is up to us as a council body to come up with something, whether it's conducive for them to become part of the towing district or other companies to become part of the towing district. But I think we have reached a point where something has to be done. It's one of the very first things that was brought to me when I came on council, and I've been on council 7 years. And I don't think anyone who is a taxpayer in the city, who's a small business owner, who employs combined probably about 50 people who live in the city of Akron, should have to keep coming back to us asking for an opportunity when they meet all the requirements. So I have received a few calls from some council members, had some questions, and I asked them all to email them so we could all have that conversation, a meaningful, fruitful conversation as to what this will look like in order to move the needle to allow these two small businesses to be a part of the city of Akron. And I do want to also say that, you know, when I look in the paper and they keep highlighting all of these small businesses for the whole entire month, and then we have two small businesses who've come to us for years asking to be a part of the district. And it seems like it's just nothing has happened, regardless of whether I've done research, whether Chairman Kamer has done research, or Councilman Fusco, or Councilman Malik, or Councilman Neal. Nothing has been done. And this allows us an opportunity to really do something meaningful so we can include other small businesses, again, who meet all the requirements into the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Let's see if we have any questions for you. I don't see any right now on the hands raised function. We do Councilman Malik, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councilwoman Samples. You know, I know that a number of folks have weighed in over the last few months. Chairman Kamer, I know you've been working on this. I know Councilwoman Samples, Councilman Fusco, President Somerville, I might just name everyone. I know Councilwoman Mobian. So, you know, I know that there are a lot of different ideas. I know this is something that hasn't been dealt with in a long time. These are outdated ordinances. You know, I won't speak to you know, what the proposal should be, but I do think that we should be putting in some kind of mechanism where there is some kind of competitive bidding process or competitive process. You know, I think council determining who should and shouldn't be in these districts is not necessarily the best practice. I certainly am not an expert on towing. So that would be my idea. And then I guess, you know, if there are going to be multiple pieces, I mean, I think that maybe we should have a special meeting that's just dedicated to this. Clearly, there are a majority of council members who have actively worked on this, if not almost everyone. And so I think it would be helpful to set aside some time that we can work through all of the issues and make sure there's something I think everyone can get behind.
Thank you, Councilman. I do see Councilman Russ Neal, his hands up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to, there's a couple things that I need. Going back to an email that was sent last year, February 2011, 2020, where I asked for an understanding on how tow districts are awarded. asked that that be brought to us as council. So especially at that time, I said, since we have 5 new members on council, so that we could discuss this. My concern is Ms. Raymer put in a public records request for me regarding the contracts that are associated with these toll districts. That question that was asked back last year. I asked again February 1st of this year. So basically about a month. Does anyone have a copy of the contracts that are signed by these toll districts? The contracts that are reviewed and awarded? Can that be answered for me, please?
All right, thank you. I'll move on to President Somerville. She had her hand up.
Excuse me, Mr. Kamer, because Mr. Chairman, I asked a question. Does anybody have a copy of the contracts? I asked over a year ago, and a public records request was put in at the beginning of this month.
Okay, so your question really goes to the law department, and I don't have that answer for you.
Mr. Chair, I can address that.
Okay, go ahead.
I apologize. I just wanted to follow up regarding that question. The law department did receive your request, Mr. Neal, and we are working on it, and we're working on determining whether or not there are any responsive records. And I'll be following up with you shortly about that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. Hold on, I'm gonna stay in order here of the hands being raised. So my next person I see is President Somerville.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I first want to thank everyone who has been working on this issue and has been very vocal, Councilwoman Samples, and also yourself, Councilman Kamer. It's no secret to council that the structure and the process of our towing districts is not fair and it's not equitable, and understandably so. We're talking about we have made no adjustments, changes, updates to the process in 25 years. So with no updates in the last 25 years, a comprehensive review and deep dive needed to be made into the process. And so I gave that charge to Public Safety Chair, Councilman Kamer, and all those who wanted to participate to have these conversations, because a comprehensive review is just necessary. And the thing about it is maybe it's been 25 years because to do a comprehensive review and a major deep dive is a major undertaking. It takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of work into having conversations, doing research, making sure that you have everyone's input. And so the reality of it is historically we've had a process in place where companies have been handpicked. They've been handpicked and they've been giving a district, and that is not equitable, and that is not fair. And so what I've asked is so that we can look at the process, reevaluate the process, make it not just fair and equitable, but make it open, make it transparent to whomever wants to be involved in the process. And so that is the process that Councilman Kamer and those who have been in contact with him have been working on undertaking so that we can reevaluate the process, open it up, make it transparent, make sure that it really truly is fair and equitable, and moving past this historical process of handpicking companies. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, President. Before I call on anyone else, I appreciate your comments, and you put me basically to delegate this job duty to me back in early December. And I want to thank Sarah and Holly for some of their research, and I'll update council on what I've been doing. And I know I've talked to a few council members, and I've had some scheduled Zoom meetings with some council members. And one of them I had to cancel today with Councilwoman Omobian. But through this process over the last 3 months, I have spoke to approximately about 9 city officials throughout the state of Ohio. I also have spoke to a representative from the State Highway Patrol. I've also spoke to 3 different tow companies outside of Summit County to basically get their input on how they do their towing businesses. I could go on and looking at the research that I've done, and with the emails and the phone messages back and forth from these other city officials throughout the state of Ohio, it is a heavy task. And I just want to thank some of my colleagues that have been there, that have reached out for help, to offer help, and then also be part of the discussion. So I will be bringing in legislation next Monday that everybody can look at and basically discuss it. And I believe it's going to be fair and the best for the city. So I will be submitting that and hopefully we'll be coming in next Monday. So I'll move on to the questions. And my next person that had their hand up was Councilman Lombardo and then Councilwoman Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking over the legislation, I just want to be clear on, we have 7 towing districts. And again, if I'm misspeaking, someone correct me. 7 towing districts, and I thought there was 5 companies. So I just don't see the two, no, wait a minute. The 2 companies that were repeated, I just don't see them in the mix here anymore. I would expect to, if somebody had District 1 and District 5, whatever, I would still expect to see them in District 1 if District 5 could possibly get a new company. And I'm just not clear on the legislation, the graphic there.
All right, thank you. I don't know if Councilwoman wants to answer that before I move on to other questions. Councilwoman Samples or?
This Councilman Swirsky would like to ask
Mr.
something.
Lombardo, there's some towing districts on the ones attached to the legislation where there's some towing districts that actually towing companies that are over 2 districts. That's why you only see 5 for 7, because there's two towing companies who actually oversee 2 areas.
Right, but I'm not seeing their second area.
That's because they're under a different name.
Oh, okay. So there's one company that has 2 names. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'm going in order. I have Amobian, then Councilman Swirsky, then Russ Neal again.
Okay.
Councilwoman Amobian. I don't know, Sarah, do you see her or?
I do see her and she's not muted.
Okay. Well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm glad you acknowledged the cancel meeting, but I didn't know about it. That's okay. Here's my concern. We've been talking about the. Yes, can you hear me?
You're cutting out.
Now? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what is the problem? Hello? Hello? Sorry that I came outside because I was having problems inside. And I hope people can hear me, is that for years now we've been talking. I'm glad that President says that it's been an unfair process, to Mr. Chairman, but I'm hoping that it would have been nice to have a more diverse group of folks to sit around the table and talk about this issue. Because even though it was assigned to 2 of you or something, it appears that only you've been working on it. So I don't know what you're going to bring forth, but I hope that we can address this when you bring it forth next week, when we see the 2 pieces together side by side. I hope you got all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I appreciate that. Now, Councilman Swirsky.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your patience with my hand waving too. I was just kind of struck by the fact that Councilman Neal asked for public records request a year ago. Is that correct? And now the law department says they have information for him for next week. Is that our standard practice? And is that consistent with state law on those requests? And if not, I would ask other members of the administration, I don't know if Mayor Horgan's here or not, I see his name there, but I think that's something we have to take a look at, because it's not just about the towing, it's about other issues and concerns in our community. So please tell me that we don't wait a year before we give people the documents that they request. Could
It was a
somebody
month
speak
ago,
to
Rich.
that?
Rich, it was a month ago, and
Oh,
yeah, his first request was from a year ago to I don't know where, but his public records request at Rebecca was a month ago, along with the hundreds of public records requests. And she's going to connect with him after this to make sure that he gets that. So,
okay. Do we have a goal of how quickly we get back to people? If that's true, if it was only a month ago,
as you know, that these public records requests, there's no timeline, and it depends on the records that you're going through, but you have a reasonable amount of time to be able to get these through. Now, there are hundreds of public records requests that come into the law department that have to go to various departments. So it's one of the more cumbersome things that all governments have to do, but there's information in there. And so she's going to connect with him after this. No, you're in short, no, there's no standard amount of time. Sometimes you can do them in a day. Sometimes they take longer.
And I would just
Okay.
add, Councilman Swirsky, that this is Yamini. There is also a process that has to be done. You don't just get the information and get records and send them out. There is a process that needs to be done to determine what records can be released under the law and to redact information that needs to be redacted. So there is a process, and it is a reasonable amount of time, as the mayor indicated, to get these out.
is there a way to define reasonable amount of time a little
Well,
better?
it's dependent
Yeah.
on the nature of the request often.
Yeah,
Okay.
there is no
Yeah.
reasonable. It's not defined, and it's specific to say it's not defined reasonable, and that is from Ohio Supreme Court. That is from the legislature. They never could put a time frame on because of the varying natures of public records requests. We've asked for those too, and that goes back to the time as clerk. There's nothing that defines reasonable.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's understandable too, given each situation is different with its own complexity and its own nature. I understand. And now I'm understanding the whole process better. And, I was relieved to hear it was only a month ago, not a year ago. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councilman, and thank you, Mayor, and everybody else. Now, I'm going in order. I did see President Somerville's hand up first, but you might have lowered it. Okay. So my next person is going to be Councilman Neal again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to state this because these meetings are part of our official record. The fact that we're stating that these have taken 25 years is critical, but the real fact is that we've taken over 4 years. 4 years to address this. I'm going to resubmit my email that was sent over a year ago and ask that be a part of this official record. As council, we have to look at our legislative process. This is dysfunctional. We can't talk about being open and transparent when we can't, even as 13 members, have a discussion as council as a whole about an issue that has been brought before us, this present council for over a year now, and some of us that are from the past council over the past 2 or 3 years. I don't know when it was, Mr. Chairman, when you said that you were going to bring in a piece of legislation back when Councilwoman Samples brought in the first piece. I mean, this isn't rocket science. And so I want to make this statement because this is a part of our official record. And as we do talk about creating equitable policies and practices, the way we go about legislating is a big part of the problem. So, and I do want to state, I appreciate Councilman Swirsky asking. It was over a year ago that I did ask for this information. The beginning of the month, I did ask for make a public records request. But as a councilman, when we make requests during these meetings, it shouldn't, we're council people. When we make a request to a department head or in a meeting, we should not have to make a public records request. That request is a part of the official record. We should get that information. is because I didn't get it after asking for it over years, a year ago, that I had to make a public, as a sitting councilman, had to make a public records request for an issue that's been brought before us for over 4 years now. So it's my hope that we could take, as we, again, I said this before, as we reimagine public safety, as we reimagine the legislative process that we practice is a part of the problem. It should not take a constituent coming to us for 4 years for us to address their issue. But we're here now. We've got a chance to do the right thing. So I'm looking forward to us addressing this matter as expeditiously as possible.
Well, thank you, Councilman. And I mean, back in 2017, when the legislation was brought in and council decided not to support it, I'll be honest with you, this is like a similar piece of legislation. It's almost exactly the same as 2017. And I sit on the tow review board. We meet quarterly, and I invite people to those meetings, and there's only one person that has ever come to that meeting since I've been on it since 2013. It's been on council, and that was former councilwoman Veronica Sims. So moving forward, yeah, I'm bringing in a piece next Monday. We'll discuss it. And this is a discussion that I've had with numerous cities that we'll see if we can build upon. But as I look at this piece of legislation today, it's similar to 2017. And that's all I have to say about that. I mean, maybe you should have stepped up and did some of the work too in the previous years, but Councilwoman President Somerville.
I think my hand's been up. Are you calling on me or Margot?
Somerville, sorry. Then you're next.
Madam President, you're muted.
I'll yield to Tara. She
All
was.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Few things. First, I want to say there was someone who asked about how the towing districts got started. Well, you know, after talking to many police officers who've been police officers and retired police officers, those who are new to council, the districts were started because of retired police officers were gifted certain areas in the city. This came from a police officer, and this is how the towing district was started. We can go on and on about how it was started, but now we're here today. Whether the legislation came in 4 years ago or today, the issue still remains. We've had the same issue then that we have now. Why wasn't it spoken up about then? The same people were still in place. Towing district board still in place. I'm just a little incensed by the disrespectful tone that always seems to come towards minorities on council. So I need to have that go on the record. Very disrespectful. Just because someone does not call someone does not mean they're not doing the work. When I spoke with Councilman Malik, when Margot asked us to work on this, Council President Somerville asked us to work on this. Councilman Malik said he was going to reach out to Mr. Kamer and to Mr. Fusco, and I allowed him to do that. I can go back and send everybody all the emails from me constantly asking where we were, could we do this, could we change that? One thing is, people lie all day long, but I have a paper trail 4 years long, 4 years long. And yes, the legislation looks very similar, and that's because something had to be done. So now it's on the table. Now we can do something about it. It's not about who brings it in or semantics. We have 2 small business owners who've been fighting. We have other people who may want to be a part of that district. So now let's do something about it instead of worrying about who called who and being disrespectful. It's ridiculous at this point. We all know it is. Every one of us have visited, at least most of us have visited Team Towing. Most of us have heard from this woman countless times. I've got emails from her and Kenny's Towing. I mean, so many emails. I mean, there has to be hundreds by this time. And it's not just about just giving something to them. It's about making it fair and equitable. I didn't just sit on my hands and come here and scream and yell about putting them in the district. I've done the work too and been doing the work. I've been working with Representative Ty Villa-Golansky to see what we can do on a state level to make this fair and equitable. Fair and equitable. And that's what needs to happen here. So I'm hoping that moving forward, we all have big personalities and we all know that. But it's time to put those aside for us to actually do what's right by people who have been fighting to be in this district. Thank you.
Councilman Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I two things. The first, with regard to Mr. Neal's question, that the actual substance of the question about contracts, I mean, it was my understanding that there are no contracts with regard to the towing districts. The whole point is that these it's like they've been knighted by, the king or queen of England. They have these districts as part of their purview. There are contracts with regard to, if city-owned vehicles are towed, but with regard to towing districts, there are not contracts. Can someone from the law department address whether that's the case? If it's not immediately available, I understand, but that was my pretty clear understanding.
I can address that if you'll allow me, Mr. Chair.
Sure, go ahead.
And again, I just wanted to clarify for the record, the timeline. As far as, requests made a year ago, it doesn't sound like there was an actual public record request made at that time. The request that we received was on February 1st from Holly. And it took a couple days to actually establish what specifically Mr. Neal was looking for. So Holly did receive and clarify for us what specifically he was looking for around the 8th or 9th, I believe. And since then, it is my understanding that there are not contracts, as Mr. Malik indicated. But again, we were going through the process that, that the law department follows in order to check with multiple departments and to make sure that there was actually, to make sure whether that was, the case or not. That way we can provide a complete response. And that's where we're at currently. So as I indicated before, I will be following up with Mr. Neal about that and providing a formal response.
Sorry. Thank you, Ms. Advent. I appreciate that. I know the public records request process firsthand can be cumbersome. But I appreciate the clarification about the contract specifically. The other statement I just want to make, clearly this is an issue that has raised a lot of concern. Again, I think that, I hope that we have an opportunity once we have, this other piece of legislation to sit down and all of us can I know everyone has different perspectives about how this needs to happen. I believe we can come and find some kind of common ground. I don't believe there's anything in terms of the substance of the policy that's too controversial here. But I think it's clear that this issue is, its time has come.
Thank you. Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, for record, and Councilman Malik, I asked the question because many times by the public safety chair, and if you reference the email that I'm going to make part of our public record, contracts were brought up. You're correct, there were no contracts. Why all of a sudden, when I asked a month ago for public records, we're finding out now that I got to get a formal request, a formal answer that there are no contracts? I asked so that it would be documented. Again, when we talk about structural and institutional practice, this right here is a key case study. And Mr. Kamer, I'm glad my colleague, Ms. Samples, spoke. I don't know where your ego gets off, if it makes you feel good, sir, but I know the legislative process very well. We have a public safety committee. It was assigned to your committee. It's on record. 4 years ago, you said you were going to bring in legislation. 4 years ago, you said you were going to bring in legislation, sir. And we're waiting 4 years later. It's not till Ms. Samples brings something in that all of a sudden now you're jumping up to bring in some legislation. Folks, this is dysfunctional.
So President Somerville asked me in December to look into this, take a deep dive into this. So I did. And I, for the record, went on record, said I will be bringing in something and reporting to council in March. Next week is March 1st. Councilman Freeman.
Okay, hey, thank you. I just wanted to chime in. This is kind of an aside from everything we're talking about. Just so anyone that's listening knows that, to this day, we are acting within our authority per the Ohio Revised Code. So, and I understand the equity argument, but the way we've been operating for decades now, it is, one of the things that the Ohio Revised Code allows us to have kind of sole authority over. So I didn't want anyone listening to think, oh, council's been doing it wrong all along. We've been doing this by the guidelines of the Ohio Revised Code. And then it's kind of an aside question. Who right now, do we know who has the contract for towing Akron Police Department vehicles? I don't know if anybody can give me that information. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, I can answer that for you, Councilman Freeman. So Board of Control had 3 bidders, and I serve on the Board of Control, just to let council know, and Johnny's was awarded that. Okay, President Somerville.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to end, if I possibly can, to say that, this is an opportunity again for council to collectively come together and to address this issue, just as we are having conversations collectively about reimagining public safety in our community. Trust me, when we're talking about a comprehensive review and a deep dive into this, it's a lot of work to be done. Okay, and so there's a lot of room at the table for people to roll up their sleeves and begin to do this work. And so I just hope that on next week, I'm definitely open to having conversations and looking at both pieces and seeing how we can address the issue collectively. So again, I just want to thank council and all those who have been vocal and who have been working hard to address this issue. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Fusco.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kamer. I'm glad and I appreciate Council Representative Freeman's comments, because we are doing this in bounds. We're doing this legally. The state of Ohio, the ORC, and the way it's been operated has been correct. We've been doing it legally. And the thing of it is, Mr. Kamer is on that towing review board. And the problem becomes when there is a problem. That's whenever it's typically addressed. And it's been brought up a couple of years ago in terms of, how do we move forward? Because there's others who are interested in possibly getting a tow district, a small business. There's a lot of towing districts that would like to participate, obviously. There is. Many of these tow companies, though, who have a district today, you talk to them, they will tell you it took them 10 years, 15 years just to get on. Okay. The Towing Review Board is in place to address concerns and complaints that come forward. When a problem exists, then it's their charge to correct that. Now, Ms. Coleman Crane has been coming down for a couple of years. Well noted, well noted. The thing of it is, though, the charge is with Mr. Kamer as his chairmanship with regards to the committee. I appreciate the good work Ms. Samples has done with regards to this as well and the concerns that have been brought forward. I'm asking council right now, and I think President Somerville basically said the same, and that is move forward. Next week, we will see a companion piece come in. Let's put everything aside and let's come out with something that we can all be proud of. And it gives everyone opportunity. The thing of it is, though, this is very, very complex. You have to operate within the confines of the ORC, okay? As well as look at what we could possibly do to make it more equitable, to make it fair, to even the playing field. So all of these issues are going to be addressed, I feel, in the weeks to come. Let's work on this together collectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Mr. Kamer.
Councilwoman Omobian.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I don't think anyone has accused anybody of doing anything illegally. And I spoke to this many years ago, and it could have been 2 or 3 years ago.
it speaks to the good old white boy system that we've had in place downtown for so long. And that's what we've been talking about for years. And why it has taken so long for us to look at this. And the only thing we've said, I haven't even said, let's put all the towing districts out for bid. I just said, no one towing district operator should have two towing districts. When you have other folks out there who are qualified, who have the equipment, who can do the work, and they're asking to have an opportunity to do the work. That's all we've ever said. And when these two folks came forth, all we had to do was to ask those two businesses that were operating two towing districts to give up one each. And that would have created two that could have gone out either to bid or just to assign them to somebody. Because I don't know of many companies in Akron area that would be in a position to provide the kind of equipment and the level of service that's needed to operate these districts. So that is what the problem has been, is that we just had a good old white boy system in operation for a number of years. And we're saying, let's do something about this. And that's all. And it shouldn't have to take 3, 4, 5 years to do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I believe one of the towing companies is owned by a female. Councilman McKittrick.
I'm sorry, it was not owned by a female when it was given to her husband. Her husband died, and that's how she got it. And let's be honest about it, okay? Thank you.
Councilman McKittrick.
Councilman, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. We're talking about some of these companies have two districts. District 4, which is Johnny's, which I'm looking at the legislation that was introduced. That's one of the districts to be split. Does anybody know, does Johnny's have two districts?
No, I'll answer that for you. No.
Okay, well, I guess then that's kind of not applicable from what we just heard. Thank you.
Right. And then obviously moving forward, the history of how these two districts or two tow companies gained two other districts is obviously City Council approved it. And I do not have those dates in front of me. So that's it. Any other questions or comments? I'm looking at the hand raise function. This is pretty good discussion.
His hand raised.
Councilman Freeman?
I was actually public safety, I think prior to you, Mr. Kamer. And I mean, I have to take exception. I do not consider myself to have been a part of a good old white boy, whatever. That just kind of bothered me, and I wanted to say something. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, moving forward, I mean, obviously my piece will come in next Monday, and I just ask all council members to let's continue that discussion and obviously think about safety for the police officers, for any motorists that are on our roadways, and then obviously the tow companies. Oh, I do see some more hands raised. Councilwoman Omobian.
No, I'll save it for next week. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Samples.
Just briefly, Councilman Freeman, I want to choose my words wisely here because I see we all are in a little emotional spaces here, but it should bother you just as much when Black people are disrespected on this council as it just bothered you with Councilwoman Amobian's statement. It should be just as a bother when we feel disrespected.
All right, with that, do we have a recommendation? Obviously, I think Councilwoman Samples, I don't want to put words into her mouth, but obviously she's okay with taking time so we can continue that discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for time.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Going to our final resolution piece, our final piece in public safety. This one's offered by the mayor, President Somerville, and Vice President Fusco, and obviously myself, urging the Governor DeWine and the Ohio Department of Public Health to include law enforcement officers in Tier 1B regarding the distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine and to increase the amount of vaccine sent to Summit County to accomplish this request and declare an emergency. Obviously, I want to thank the state FOP and obviously our local FOP, Akron 7 President Clay Cozart, for their hard work in regards to trying to get our state law enforcement officers to get vaccinated. Obviously, the only comments that I have is we shouldn't be discussing this right now, that these officers should have been part of the process at the beginning. So if it's okay with council, I'm going to have FOP President Clay Cozart say a few words, and then I'll take any comments or questions.
Thank you, Chairman Kamer, and I want to thank you, Mayor Horrigan, Council President Somerville, Vice President Fusco, for bringing this important resolution to your committee and to hopefully council as a whole. There are some pretty strong facts in the resolution. Reference 409 law enforcement officers passing away of COVID since the beginning of this pandemic. And as we all know, and we all attended a good friend of mine, Ed Stewart's funeral and ceremony in front of the station over the weekend, it hit home. And so we ask that you pass this, as some other city councils have done throughout the state. We've been in constant contact with the governor's office. You may not know, but police officers were on the 1B list, but were taken off despite that studies being shown that police officers are at the highest risk of all first responders. We have more citizen contacts than other first responders. And thankfully, our firefighters were able to get the vaccine. And we're just hoping that this resolution will kind of help move the needle a little bit. You know, the City of Akron Police Department's been highly affected by COVID. We've had almost 200 personnel placed on a 14-day quarantine. 41 have been quarantined because of symptoms. And then another almost 100 have been placed in isolation because of testing positive for COVID. And that's not only is that a risk to their health, but it's also costing the city money. And we have to bring in people for overtime to replace those that are on COVID quarantine. And, you know, this is a national situation for police officers. In 2020 alone, nearly 300 COVID-related deaths have occurred in this nationally, and that represents about 60% of line of duty deaths for 2020. In prior years, the previous 10 years, line of duty deaths, 31% was a result of gunfire, 38% automobile accidents, and then 31% all other offenses. And so that number, as you see, has tripled. So we appreciate your consideration of this resolution, and I thank you for the time to allowing me to address your committee, Chairman.
Thank you, Clay. I appreciate it. And I know before I take the questions, I know Mayor Horrigan was a co-sponsor on this, and I'll see if he's got any comments.
Thanks, and thanks, Clay. You know, public health obviously become very tricky as the Ohio Department of Health has decided, kind of based on supply, you know, who is getting the vaccine and who is not. And they've rolled out a pretty succinct timeline about who's getting what. You know, we advocated very strongly about not only police officers, but fire safety personnel, but also, you know, the number of COVID hospitalizations, deaths, and infections in the minority community. And so there's been a coalition And it's really, sometimes it seems like you're pitting one against another, and that's not fair because supply is where it is. But when you have that contact and the number that is coming in, hopefully that number increases significantly over the next week. I think there are some announcements coming over the next 10 days to where we'll start to do some mass vaccination sites, get the word out better, get people transportation. And it's all driven on supply. But when you're looking at that contact, when it comes to teachers and essential workers, those are on the front line, and we want to make sure that they're vaccinated. And those are just the people that want them. There's some concern out there about people who say, you know what, and I've talked to police officers and they've said it, you know what, I'm going to wait. And that's certainly fine. It's not a mandate to be able to do this, but getting them right there and to be able to do this, so when they have those citizen contacts, that they are protecting themselves, has always been a high priority too. So we continue to push for those that are affected most to be in the front of the line. So thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other two sponsors want to say anything, or Fusco, President Somerville, you're okay?
Thank you
I'm
for
good.
bringing this forward, and I'd like to thank Mr. Kozar for bringing this forward, and let's hope for the best here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to echo what has already been said. So want to thank you for bringing this forth. Also want to thank Mr. Kozart. Again, we really shouldn't be having this conversation. Our police officers, frontline in constant contact day in and day out with the public to make our community safer. So again, total and full support of this piece moving forward. And so hope that the rest of my colleagues will be in support as well.
Thank you. Councilman McKittrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely, this shouldn't be discussed right now. This should have been taken care of long ago. Our police officers are more often than not the first responders on the scene. They're there well before the fire department, the EMS, and they're at great exposure for this. And our recent loss is a prime example of that. And I would like to ask to have my name added to this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to bring, it was brought to my attention last week before, I reached out to Deputy Safety Director Charles Brown. That's when I learned that our police were not vaccinated. But I'd like for council to also keep in mind, we have seasonal workers that work for the city in our rec centers and other places that come in contact with the public who don't have the full benefit of some of the health coverages of those of us here because they're seasonals. If there's any way we can keep those folks in mind as well, because it's brought to my attention that there was a concern that was brought to me, and when I went to Deputy Safety Director Brown, that's when I found out that our police weren't covered. So of course I stand in support of this legislation, but we have other city workers who are in contact with the public who aren't covered. So whatever we could do to remember them and get them in front of the line would be helpful too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo all the sentiments that folks have raised. Perhaps this evening we could pass this as mayor and council as a whole. The only other point I'd like to make is that I know I saw in some of the reporting that the hospitals were the first to get vaccines, and some of their security staff have been vaccinated, while our officers have not been. So I think this is something that the state needs to correct, and obviously supply is limited, but we really need to make sure that our frontline police officers have the same protection that fire and EMS now have.
Thank you. All right, can I ask for a vote? Obviously, hopefully a motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules with the favorable report.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We'll pass that before us this evening. And with that, we're done. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Our next committee meeting of the day is the Rules Committee. Those committee members are Freeman, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Malik. Councilman Freeman, we're ready whenever you are.
Okay, we'll go ahead. 60 seconds. Okay, we'll call the Rules Committee meeting to order, and if I could please have a roll call.
Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
All committee members are
Thank you.
present.
If I could have a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
very good. We have two resolutions. The first resolution is a resolution approving and confirming the appointment by Mayor Horgan of Dr. Sheldon B. Rice as a member of the Akron Civil Rights Commission and declaring an emergency.
I'm happy to take that one, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So we have another appointment due for our Akron Civil Rights Commission. We are putting before you today Dr. Sheldon Rice, who has graciously joined us. So I'll give a little intro of him, and then I'll give him a few minutes to speak. We're very happy to have him here. He's currently the Vice President for Inclusion and Equity, and then Chief Diversity Officer, Professor of Technical Writing and Composition at the University of Akron. He's very involved in our community. He's involved at the university as well in a lot of academic and leadership roles, including the Student African American Brotherhood, and then a faculty advisor for the Black Excellence Network. He's also involved in several boards and commissions throughout the community, really dedicated to education in our community. He met with Mayor, and they had a great discussion. We're very happy to have him here. So Dr. Rice, if you want to throw in any additional words, we're happy to give you the floor for a second.
Well, good afternoon. I'm not sure what else to say. I see a lot of familiar faces of people that I know and worked with in the past and prior committees throughout the community. I see Ms. Somerville there, Ms. Obomian, and of course, my good brother, Mr. Lash. I see him. So I'm very excited and honored for the opportunity to work and to serve. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you for agreeing to offer your service in this respect. And we do have anything else you have to say, add to it?
No, other than I have another meeting that I need to kind of make an
Well, let's get this approved then. So are there any other questions or comments from any members of the committee or council members?
I have a comment, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I've certainly known Dr. Rice, and I know of his good work, and I'm sure he'll be a great addition to this commission. And thank you so much, Dr. Rice, for being available to serve.
Thank you.
Mr. Fusco's hand?
Yeah, motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Have a motion to second. All in favor, please let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, very good.
Aye.
Dr. Rice, I hope we got that approved in time for your next meeting. Thank you for your service, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Is a resolution congratulating John Valley on the occasion of his retirement, thanking him for his dedicated service to the city of Akron, and wishing him well in all of his future endeavors and declaring an emergency.
Yeah, let me jump in on this. John has, if you've gotten to know John over the years, obviously I think he's the epitome of what great constituent services are for the city. And even when he started out on council, I think it's that model about how you take care of customers. There was never an issue that was too small. And he got himself involved in some very big projects. And I think he's a model. He's been a model city employee, model council person, model friend. And I appreciate all of the advice, hard work, and just being able to listen, sometimes not listening, which will happen sometimes. But congratulations, John. I think you've very well deserved and very well earned on your time with the city. And so I know will be tough shoes to fill, but I appreciate your service at the city. And I don't know anybody in any four corners of the city who doesn't know your name, whether it was greeting them at Acme 1 or Acme 8 or wherever you worked. Nobody's ever said anything negative about John. He got stuff done. It was that model of just getting stuff done. So I appreciate that. I wish a lot more people thought about that and took a thoughtful approach to that same approach. So congratulations, John. I appreciate it. And I know the accolades will be coming from everybody. So thanks.
Mr. Swirsky.
Well, the mayor brought up really three key words about John Valley, which are he gets things done. And in fact, in my mind, as somebody who followed into public service in Ward 1, John was always a model in my head about you got to get things done, I can't separate that phrase, get things done, without thinking of John Valley. And thank you, John. And there's so much more to that, but that basically is it. John Valley gets things done.
Mr. Lombardo, I thought I saw your hand raised there.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, just echoing the mayor's words, I just wanted to say thank you to John Valley. Not only is he a Ward 2 resident, but I just wanted to thank him for his support in all my endeavors from everything that I've been involved in. And he was there to, guide me along. And, he's very helpful in anything that I needed with any questions that I'd have. So I just want to wish him the best of luck. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Ms. Amobian.
Mr. John Valley, this is Linda Omobian. I want to wish you well in your retirement, and you are most deserving. I don't know how many years it's been that you've actually worked for the city, but then your public service on city council, and then the public service you did in the grocery store, because I'm sure as a manager in a grocery store, you felt like you were doing public service as well. But we want to just thank you for all that you've done for the city of Akron, and I wish you well.
Samples.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Councilman Freeman. John, I will miss you. You are my buddy. You made being on council very easy for me and for many of us coming in the door. I do wish you well, but I hope that you won't stay away for too long, because there will be a lot of kaboom projects that I would like to see you. I think that we grew a new friendship bond working on the kaboom project in North Hill. So I will look for you. And if I don't see you, I will probably text and ask where you are. I'll miss you, John. You have a good retirement because you deserve it.
Thank you.
Neil? Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Valley, I just want to say thank you, sir. When I think of, people aren't lying when they say you get things done. I'm thinking of Mr. Grover coming down and his frustration with litter, and you helping us get that My Neighborhood, Our Akron in place to address that issue. And then with My Neighborhood, Our Akron, you helped us, work closely with you. We got the Our City City Council, Our City, Our Ward City Council grant together. And then I'm thinking about the problems with the parks and the Pee Wee football teams, and how you helped stand in the gap there for us to work those things out. And there's more things. You know, there's some things we didn't get a chance to accomplish, but like the soccer fields and other things. But I mean, you are one who, you know, you get down there in the trenches with us, and yeah, man, I just really do appreciate you. You're a true community public servant. So man, hey, enjoy this time. You earned it. Mr. Lash, you hear all this, sir? You hear all this? You got some big shoes to fill, buddy. You got some big shoes to fill. You got to bring it. But hey, I know you will. But hey, Mr. Valley, kudos to you, sir. God's blessings.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Malik.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And like everyone, just want to congratulate you, Mr. Valley. I know that you work so hard for the city of Akron and have for so long. I know one morning as a city attorney, I walked into a 9 a.m. meeting and I was just, you know, I was a little tired, and Mr. Valley had already biked to Kent and back before work and was now in the meeting. He's forgotten more about the city than many of us will know. But I think the real value that we've seen from you, Mr. Valley, has been that you clearly have so much compassion and care for the people, right? And like the mayor said, no incident was too small to work on. So, you know, as someone who feels they've learned a lot from you, both as a city attorney and a city lawyer, a city council member, I just want to thank you so much. I've benefited from it, and I know the city has as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll recognize Ms. Somerville and then Mr. Fusco.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I think it's all been said, but again, I just want to thank Mr. Valley so much just for his years of service and just his dedication to the city of Akron. Really and truly, it is Mr. Valley who makes us as council members look good when it comes to really helping us to address constituents' complaints in a timely manner. So I just want to thank him so much. I also just want to thank him when I first came on, and I mean, it was a lot to be learned, and he took the time to kind of sit down with me and go through departments and kind of teach me the ins and outs so that I could be an effective council person. So again, I've never forgot that, Mr. Valley, and just want to thank you so much and wish you the best in your next chapter.
Thank you. Mr. Fusco.
Yes, Chairman Freeman. Sharon Connor had her hand up, so I would yield to her first.
Oh, okay, very good. Ms. Connor?
Thank you, Mr. Fusco and Mr. Freeman. I don't think there's a project or a street in Ward 10 that John Valley hasn't touched in one way or the other. And not only is he a tremendous public servant, his work with all of us, you know, as a new neighborhood advocate, when I didn't know what to do, you just get told, call John Valley. He'll tell you exactly what to do. He'll know how to help you. And he has always helped us with kindness and compassion. And look forward to your retirement. Enjoy every moment. Spend lots of time with those grandchildren and come back to Ward 10 when you're ready.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Fusco, we'll come to you now.
Thank you. Mr. Valley, are you going to be here this evening at 7 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I'll save some of my comments for that time, but the one thing I have one or two things, but one of them is that, you know, there's truly a thin line between community service and customer service. And the thing of it is John, you've treated the community with that customer service touch. You know, you would tell us, you call John Valley and he will give you the straight dope on it. You may not like to hear it, but he kind of says it with a smile. And I think everyone appreciates that. You don't sugarcoat it. Just, this is the way it is. It's business as is. But I have a couple comments I'll reserve for tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Yes, Ms. Baylor.
Yeah, I just want to chime in and just say to Mr. Valley, I remember this one incident where he invited me. I think I was on school board at the time, and they were working on some playground project. And he gave me the address and everything. And I showed up and it poured down rain, thunder, lightning, and everything under the sun. But I specifically remember that particular event and how he's always engaged other people, no matter where you were or what you were affiliated with the projects that were going on in the city as far as recreation and parks are concerned. Thank you, John, and you have a great retirement. Like others have said, you earned it. And there's other incidents, but that's the one I just wanted to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking to see, I think everybody wanted to speak has spoken. John, I'm going to reserve comments for tonight because I'm into about page 7 of my document here, so I don't have it completed yet. So anything you'd like to, anything you'd like to say to us, John?
Yeah, just very briefly, thanks Mayor Horrigan, Council, for bringing in the resolution. I have remarks that I want to share tonight, but I just want to see if Jeff Fusco can recall ordinance number 772-1986. And I'm sure the answer is no, but that
How can I not forget that one? I remember that, of course.
Which one was it?
No, I'm just joking.
It was the junk motor vehicle ordinance that you and I sponsored in 1986. I found that in a drawer the other day, but no, I appreciate the resolution. I'm looking forward to this evening, 7 o'clock.
Excellent. Very good. So be looking for a motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in
Second.
favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Aye, great. We will revisit this here this evening. And I believe that's all we have coming before us. So we are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Our next committee meeting for the day is the Health and Social Services Committee meeting. And those committee members are Amobian, Freeman, Baylor, Neal, and Lombardo. Madam Chair, I'm ready whenever you are.
Ready.
Okay.
Are there any minutes? We'll have a motion to accept the minutes on the last meeting we had.
So moved.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have one piece to come before us today. It's a resolution raising awareness about the alarming increase of suicide in the American community, urging the County of Summit Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board to adopt and implement strategies to reduce suicide in the African American community, encouraging the state of Ohio's Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services to do the same and declaring an emergency. As someone who works in the field, I just want you to know that the interim executive director of the Adam Board, Ami Wade, will be at our meeting tonight. But I can tell you there are some strategies that have been implemented in Summit County, but certainly we can always do more. So I'll turn it over to one of the sponsors. I don't know if Mayor Horrigan is still there or not, but if not, I'll let Councilwoman Samples speak to the issue.
Thank you, Councilwoman Amobian. Yeah, basically, this resolution came about from, of course, this has been an issue within our community for a very long time. Sometimes we just, within our community, we don't talk about suicide. Having a very in-depth conversation with Tony Cotter, who is the executive director from the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation, and Darletta Logan. I was stunned at the data and wanted to make sure that we put something in writing regarding those numbers. One of the numbers that really stuck out to me is where we talk about, it says from 2014 to 2018, the suicide rate among African-American males increased approximately 54%. And if you go nationally, it increased from 1991 to 2017 by 73%. When I heard those numbers, I was floored. I think we all probably know someone or had a family member who may have committed suicide. But to hear that those numbers are just the statistics within African American men in the African American community was very disturbing to me. So Tamika Rose and I, we went back and forth about the resolution. I put it in and they came up with some really great components that needed to be added to make sure that we really put some teeth behind it and make sure that we have some initiatives in place so we can have some of our local agencies that may not be some of the bigger ones who could probably impact these numbers in a meaningful way to be able to be brought to the table will be very important in making sure when we talk about awareness and strategies that goes forward. So I don't know if Tamika wants to add to that. I do hope that this resolution will be supported. And I look forward to listening to the Adam Board this evening as well.
So if I may, Councilwoman Amodian.
Yes, please.
Thank you. So when we received the notice of the resolution, Councilwoman Samples had kind of given the city some authority that we didn't have. So I just wanted to clarify that, you know, the city supports these efforts, but we don't control mental health in Summit County. The Adams Board does. And so we wanted to just make those clarifications. And the mayor completely supports the idea behind this resolution. We just wanted to make sure that the appropriate agency was listed. And Dr. Smith, who works with interim director Amy Wade, will be here tonight to speak to the data specifically for the city of Akron and Summit County.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? I can't see any hands raised. Sarah, please let me know.
Sure. I don't see any hands raised at this time.
Okay. Again, maybe Dr. Douglas Smith will be able to talk about the initiative of zero suicide that was implemented some time ago in Summit County. And most agencies in Summit County have adopted that initiative. This is a concern. There's no question about it. But some help and some training and different initiatives are being tried. So we'll hear more about it tonight. If there are no other comments or questions, may I have a motion did you want us to pass this tonight or did you want to put it on consent? It doesn't matter, but I know it probably, excuse me.
Unless we have questions, I would request passage.
Okay. May I have a motion to pass this resolution and with suspension of the rules, please?
I'll make the motion for suspension of the rules.
Second.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay. The motion is passed unanimously, and we will take it to the floor tonight, and there will be representatives from the Adam Board. Thank you very much. There's nothing further on the agenda to my knowledge, and we are adjourned.
Our next committee meeting of the day is the Public Utilities and Green Committee. Those council members are Swirsky, Freeman, Connor, Samples, and McKittrick. Looks like all committee members are present. Councilman Swirsky, will you be chairing or will?
Yeah, I think I can go ahead and handle one piece.
Okay.
And it's thank you, Mike, for filling in. And I never can guarantee I can handle it, but today I'm okay. We were presented this a couple of weeks ago, and a number of issues and concerns were brought up. And I know that Mr. Little has answered probably most of them. And I know there's been a lot of discussion with Mr. Fusco, who's one of the original tree sponsors, and myself, and Mr. Malik had raised some issues. So are there any further questions? And I know Mr. Little set out an email this afternoon. Is that when it went out, or?
Sir, I sent it
to leadership on Friday. I assume they
Okay.
sent it to everybody.
Well, I'm on leadership and I didn't get it, but I did get it today. So, and I think any differences that we have, a lot of this has to be worked out through the tree commission. We have a good program. I myself would like to see some goals established, but I think even that process would require talking with other stakeholders, as we mentioned, which has already started, and other concerns where we literally get down into the weeds. I think those are things that the tree commission can kind of handle. I would urge all other council people to make this a subject of one of their ward meetings. And I know right now the attendance is kind of down for all of us, but it's difficult. But at some point, it would be nice for all of us to get our residents involved. And I don't know, Mr. Little, you want to make some more comments? Or Mr. Malik, I want to preclude because you were somebody. You want to make a few more comments, Mr. Little, anything?
I'll yield to Councilman Malik if he would like to make a few comments.
Sure. I'd just like to thank Mr. Little and Mr. Hardy. The tree canopy study, I think, is a great step in terms of making sure that we're, reversing the decline of tree canopy. Like Councilman Swirsky said, I hope that we can move forward with the tree commission and put together, some policies and practices, further policies and practices in collaboration with our city arborist about the kinds of trees that are planted, where we're going to plant them, the inclusion of fruit trees. I know we've discussed over the previous few weeks, and kind of timeline and goals on how we're going to get to a net positive canopy in the years to come. But I want to thank everyone for their efforts. I think the report is a great first step.
Yeah, I do too, and we're lucky we have such expertise in Mr. Malish, and also something that fits in with the vision that the mayor has of interconnectedness in livable, walkable neighborhoods. And this is, maybe a small step towards a giant process that we need to do. And I do think that beyond the goals, Councilman Fusco brought this up. We're going to have to take a look at, if we're serious about this, not only the education part, but really getting to some significant goals with rebuilding our tree canopy, that we're going to have to put maybe some more funds into it. And I'm hoping that council members and the administration can work together on that, so that we don't just have something on paper that we say we're doing that's nice, but we have some money behind it and some staff and some work that helps. And all of us as council people can help in that process. So with that, unless there's other questions, Mr. Little, what is your preference?
I think Councilman Fusco has his hand up.
Oh, I ignored him. Sorry, Jeff.
You're on mute, Councilman.
Yeah, it's well, my wife puts me on mute often. No, I just want to comment just briefly. This is a pretty substantial commitment. I know it's a result, I believe, of the agreement that we have with the feds in reference to CSOs. But it's a 2-for-1, and so there's a lot of money involved in this. $500,000 for this year. So I applaud this absolutely. And there is a lot of work, as we all know, in terms of tree canopy and so on and so forth, and appreciate the efforts of the administration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else want to make a comment or a question? Okay. I guess Ms. Samples liked the comment about the wife puts him on mute, but she's still okay. So Mr. Little, what's your preference on this?
We have bid this, and we will be opening bids here the second week of March. So consent would be fine, and then if we could pass it next week, would be much appreciated.
Okay, so a motion for consent?
Well, Mr. Swirsky,
Oh, yeah.
I think we've had 3 readings on this, if I'm correct, so we could just pass it by favorable report.
I didn't realize we had 3. Is that correct?
Yes, it has been
Okay.
3 readings. He's correct.
Okay. Well, so then you want to make a motion, Mr. Malik?
I don't believe I can.
Not on this committee.
Motion.
A second.
Oh, okay, so all agreed?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all for this. And also, I forgot to ask for approval of the minutes. Can we have quick approval of the minutes from the last meeting?
Motion to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Second.
Great. Thank you all for attending today. It's
Thank
been
you.
a long day, or it's getting to be a long day. Yeah.
Thanks all.
Okay, was that a motion for an adjournment?
Let me make a motion for adjournment. Yeah, it was just kind of a quiet one.
Okay. Our last committee meeting of the day is the Housing and Neighborhood Assistance Committee, and those committee members are Fusco, Swirsky, Samples, McKittrick, and Connor. Councilman Fusco, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay, thank you all for being here. We have one item that's under the new piece of legislation urging the President Biden and the United States, it sounds good, doesn't it? President Biden and the United States Congress to provide additional assistance to the rental housing community. This is brought to my attention, and we were asked to approve this. Basically, it pretty much, if you read it over, it's pretty self-explanatory in that, just asking the federal government due to COVID-19, obviously people can't work due to COVID-19 or they're afraid or, whatever their circumstances are, which obviously if they're not able to work, is going to have an adverse effect on them being able to pay rent. Obviously, we want to make sure that people stay in place, stay in their homes. And this is actually hoping that the federal government will provide additional funds. There's a short-term emergency response, a midterm recovery, and a long-term rebuilding that's asked for. This is a resolution just asking for continued support. I asked Ms. Tomic to kind of weigh in. She's here if we have any questions or what have you. I think it's pretty straightforward, and I'd like to ask if any questions or comments from anyone. Mr. Malik?
Sure. I very much support this, and I'm sure that we all do. I guess just a question for Ms. Tomic. I know that obviously we're all watching the federal relief bill make its way through the House and Senate, and I believe that there is some money allocated in there for rental assistance. Where are we in the planning process in terms of how that money is going to be distributed? I know that we had a number of agencies who helped administer that through the course of the last year, and I imagine that future rental assistance will more or less function the same way, with United Way playing a major role. But sort of where are we in the planning process?
So at this point, I did read there's about 25 billion allocated for rental assistance. I don't know what that would look like, if it's for rental assistance geared towards homeless. Is it rental assistance geared towards low-income folks that perhaps have their hours cut but are still working, or if there's mortgage assistance? So we're still waiting for that to come through. And Ms. Rose is also on the call. There is also some money coming through I believe it's the state, that is going to be administered through ASCA, the Akron Summit County, can't believe
Community Action, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So that money will be coming through shortly. So we still have to figure out how, what the requirements are for that pot of money, and how that will jive with the money that we are scheduled to receive with this new stimulus. In regards to the current stimulus money, you are correct. We are working with homeless shelters on a regular basis. Their costs have increased due to paying extra staff time and to cleaning needs. So we're working with emergency shelters. We are also working with United Way to provide assistance for rental, for rapid rehousing. That is folks that are currently in a homeless shelter, to get them out of that homeless shelter as soon as possible, and into stabilized housing. And then where HUD made some adjustments in their policy is homeless prevention. So if somebody falls behind in rent, prior to COVID, we were not allowed to assist them with homeless prevention if they stayed with the same landlord. They've made some adjustments, so we can pay for back rent now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tomic.
Thank you. Is there further questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Tomic. Further questions or comments from anyone? As I mentioned, this is a resolution. I think it's pretty straightforward, and I assume time is of the essence somewhat in terms of probably getting this to our representatives. So I'm going to ask for a favorable report with suspension of the rules. And also this evening too, I'd like for someone to make a motion that we approve this as a council as a whole with the mayor. Well, the mayor's already on there. So I'll ask for that this evening as well. But if there's no other questions or comments, I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept this as a favorable report with suspension of the rules. There's a motion.
For a favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Thank you, Ms. Samples. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, therefore I believe the ayes have it. It's unanimous, Ms. Viviano. So other than that, I'd like to entertain a motion that we adjourn. All those in favor?
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. That's the final committee meeting of the day. Council will meet at 7 p.m. tonight.